Well, good luck. Have fun. Don't die. I was expecting to be a strange ride, and it was a strange ride, but not in the way I expected. I did it at the Alamo where they interviewed the director. And he's like talking about how he was inspired by Dog Day Afternoon, where the guy enters the bank and he's fumbling his gun. He has no idea, he's the worst criminal possible, but he needs money. And also Repo Man, which I remember once at a birthday party. I had a party, but I never invited anyone. And so I called a bunch of people and had them come over on the day of my birthday, and we went to a movie. And we it was Repo Man, which is phenomenal. And a friend of mine, like, it changed his life. He wanted to be a punk from that moment forward. And I kind of get you sort of get the strangeness of the. All right, you should see Repo Man. You sort of get the strangeness that this movie is going to have. It starts with Sam Rockwell, who plays the man from the future, and he walks into a diner called Norm's, and he tells everyone that he wants to assemble an army. And the man from the future has this mission, which is to get out of the diner and go to this 9-year-old's house because he's about to start this singularity, which means, AI doesn't need us anymore. It's like Skynet. And he has until this time. And he needs a USB port to put this flash drive in that'll download safety protocols so the AI will care about humanity. And if he doesn't get there in time, AI is do horrible things to humanity. So that's cool. Through coercion and all that, he finally gets his army, and he tells them, like, he's from the future, and I've been doing this over and over and over and over again. And when things go wrong, I'm gonna push the button, and because I have bombs, and I have this vest of bombs, I'm a synthesizer vest, and I'm gonna start over. And he's always going back to Norm's diner to gather his army, and the people available to him are like the Uber driver, and there's this fat woman who just wants pie, and there's this hermit woman, uh, some woman in the back who is just sitting there, and she's the first one to volunteer. And this nerdy looking teacher and I thought she was his girlfriend, but it seems like she wasn't. And then because romance blooms later on, and none of them have weapons, and none of them have any skills. And for some reason, this diner is the place for recruiting an army, even though he's been trying this diner over and over and over and over again without success. So he's tried many combinations. It has worked. These police arrive, and it's really dangerous. And he sends out one guy to test whether they'd shoot him, and they get shot. And so he's very, all right, that didn't work. And some lady asked him, are we all expendable? And he says, yes. and he's tried like 3 ways to get out. There's only 3 ways to get out, and none of them end up well. And so the lady says, "There's a trap door in the office." And they go through the trap door and they get out, and which is like, uh, they already got farther than most of his army does. And I mean, they're just falling behind him, and they, and these henchmen start trying to kill him. So they all run. None of them have weapons, and but and finally they're in this alley, and he's like, "Well, your job is done. Any of you can leave if you want to." And but at that point, the army has done absolutely nothing. All they've done is follow Rockwell around. I mean, the man from the future. I'm not sure what they did except tell him there's a trap door, but they all decide to volunteer. They start following him, and the army is basically worthless until they get to the south. But anyway, they follow him around, and not a single member of the crew has any purpose except at the very end where they get to this house, and the house is just across the street. But that's the plot. But the movie goes into each of the members of the team, like the teacher. He's a substitute, and he's trying to teach them literature, like Anna Karenina, and they're all on their phones, and at the break room, he's telling these teachers, like, "Are they supposed to have phones? Because they're not listening to me." And one of the teachers says, "I've just built this ray gun that'll shut down the iPhones, and I got 2 of them," which is fitting because the teacher and she'll be his girlfriend eventually. And so you have 2 of them, which is like, that's fitting for the plot. The sub goes back to the class, and everyone's sitting there on their phone. And he touches one of them, and the class becomes like the body statues. I mean, they're all like, "Oh," getting up and approaching him, and so he leaves. They all, all these kids come out of their classrooms and they start following him. And and so he goes to the teacher's lounge and he gets the 2 ray guns. I'm not sure why that teacher is like making bank as an engineer, but yeah, but they get his guns, and they shoot him, and it shuts them down for like 30 seconds. But that's enough to escape. And another one, her son died at a school shooting, and these 3 women come up and said, "Is this your first time?" Because, our sons are dying all the time in school shootings. So we have a support group. So she's like, "All right." And they give this business card. So maybe I'll go check this out. And it turns out it's this cloning facility where they clone your children who have been shot. And the guy says, it's physically perfect, but we're working on the mental bit. And you can get it for less if you allow them to do a advertising jingle every so often. So she agrees. and she has this clown kid who's always shouting at servicemen, "Thank you for your service." And he does that incessantly. "Thank you for your service." And apparently that's the way to tell that you're not right, you're not exactly human because they are shouting at servicemen, "Thank you for your service." When she leaves the cloning facility, this other guy comes up and he says, "No, don't do the clones," and use this box that you can talk to your son and it's exactly your son. They get the physical part, but we get the actual personality. So she starts, putting AirPods in her ears, listening to them while she has this clown walking around, doing jingles and shouting at servicemen, "Thank you for your service." The hermit girl, it turns out she's allergic to technology, especially iPhones and Wi-Fi. So she's hires herself out as princesses because the very little kids don't have iPhones. So she, goes to parties but eventually they increasingly they start having phones more and more and more, like little kids. So she gets nosebleeds at one of these parties. This pizza guy drops lots of pizzas, and they say, "Where's your phone?" He's like, "I don't believe in phones." And uh, she knows that he's something special then. So she sort of hits him up and they move into together. He sort of lives off the grid and shuns technology, and they're thinking about having a kid. And eventually these VR goggles come in the mail and doesn't know where they're from or anything. Neither know he hates technology. He's like, "I want to try this one." And she's like, "I'm allergic to technology. Don't turn it on." He's like, "I'm going to do it in your way." And so he slips them on. And when she comes back, he's there in the living room and he's not even eating and stuff. Like he's sort of zombied out. He cooks her a nice dinner and gets her flowers and he breaks to her that, "I don't like this life anymore. So I'm going to hook myself into a pod and just be in VR 24/7 because it's such a better world than this one. Why wouldn't I choose that one?" And she said, "Well, I'm in this world." And he's like, "You know, sorry, babe, I'm checking out." Yeah, is all three. All right. Each of the like little stories were like Black Mirrors, where there's interesting science fiction things with technology that we don't have right now. And even though this seems like it's today, but yeah, it was interesting. It was fun, and it was like um, but yeah, so some of it was sort of like a little bit over the top, but yeah, it was a fun time. I mean, I liked it.